Maybe fingers. Oh, no. Here,
Oh,
hey, we're
oh,
live.
well, just like
I had to
that.
go live
Poof,
button like 100 times. I kept hitting it and
poof.
hitting it. It kept telling me there was an error.
Poof.
If it weren't for technical difficulties, it wouldn't be the Archer Football Podcast. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. Hope you all had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. We got our first real snowfall here in the Ohio area. I am Cleveland Kate. Down here is Miss Lisa Johnson, live from this beautiful sunny state of Florida. And to
North
our
Florida,
right,
I'm still
with no
cold.
camera on, driving but being safe and watching the road, two hands on the wheel, is our girl Sonia. How you doing tonight, Sonia? Oh, I bet she muted herself while she's driving. Sonia, talk to me when you're ready. Lisa, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I got my It's Probably Not Coffee mug.
I saw that this morning with the snow.
Today.
It was kind of cute.
Yeah. Before we get into things, I want to give a shout out to Donkeys in New Jersey. Donkeys cheesesteaks. I have got to find that service that Dana used and order some. Those pictures, I see those.
Blue belly, or yeah.
I just want to eat one.
They have 3 locations, especially when you're hungry. Oh my gosh.
Camden, no, right? Camden, Medford, and Mount Holly. The pictures are amazing. Dana ordered it, had some delivered, and said not even fresh and hot in the place, even getting it ordered and sent to her, they were still amazing. And every time I see those pictures, I'm hungry and I got to go get something to eat. I'm going to have to get myself to Donkeys. But shout out, thank you to Donkeys. They are the official sponsor of the Archer Podcast. Yes. And we talk all things NFL all the time. And we're kind of at a point in the season where there's really more going on in the college football world right now than there is in the NFL. We're 10, 11 weeks in.
Yeah.
We've got those, we've got the Eagles and the Ravens and the Chiefs who kind of separated themselves from everybody else. You've got the top 10 is interesting because there's a lot of teams clustered in that 7-4 range. And then you've got that next set of teams at 6-5, 7-5, depending on where they've had their bye weeks and stuff. And it will all sort itself out. We've got a lot of division games coming up here in the next few weeks, and it will sort itself out. The AFC North is starting to sort itself out. Was a brutal weekend for at least all of that. Most of the Browns fans I know were also Buckeyes fans. So we put the Buckeyes on Saturday.
Ohio took a shot.
To put enough emotional sports money in our bank to get through Sunday, and we didn't get that. It was a rough weekend. But so we've got time to we can talk more football, more NFL as the season progresses. We can talk about Josh Dobbs. We can talk about, the Bears. I was shocked. The stat that surprised me most of all from this entire weekend is the Bears win over the Vikings was Matt Eberflus's first divisional game win in 3 years since he took over the team. And I know the Bears have not been good, but even when the years when the Browns were bad, we could get at least one win in our division. And I didn't realize that was their first win. So congrats for the Bears. And the other thing that was interesting is the Raiders and Chiefs game. It was the first time the Chiefs scored points in the second half since October. Part of that is because they didn't have to. Because they were up 31 to something, 7 or 10 or whatever in the second half. But it was legit. The first second half points they've scored in a month.
That's crazy.
So those
were crazy stats. Those are crazy stats.
Yeah. So we'll leave a lot of this, NFL stuff for next week. And I think one of the big things I think that we should all talk about next week is the officiating. Because I know we complain about the officiating every year. There have been some very bizarre things happening this year. There have been a lot of mistakes where the guy's making the announcement and he's like, oh, wait, my bad. I meant the defense. Or he said the kicking team and he meant the receiving team. Or they correct themselves when they're doing these. Not a review changed the call, but
the review, we're going to have to throw the reviews in there because a lot of the reviews now are going different ways than what we at home are seeing. And I kind of am picking up on that because there's some of that. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely a catch. Oh, call stands. And Twitter's fired up. Everybody's fired up. It's like, did they see the same thing we did? And we get no explanations. We get no explanations.
Yeah.
We just get
more
former
views than I do.
umpires.
Yeah.
You know,
I think we need to talk a lot
we got
about
former
officiating
guy.
next week. Yeah, we need to talk a lot about officiating next week. I have some theories. So that's our little teaser for next week.
Well, your theory needs to start with Philadelphia because something's going on up there because
my theory is going to start with the influx of gambling that's going on across the country right now. ESPN's own gambling app, ESPN Bet. And I actually heard someone on a show last week complaining that it wasn't fair to the gamblers that Joe Burrow had some kind of a brace on his hand at the airport, but he wasn't on the injury report. And they said, the injury report isn't about fair play for the other teams. It's to let the bettors know what's going on before they wager. And I went, what?
Bettors, fans. Bettors, fans.
I got concerns. They don't do fantasy stardom and sit-ems anymore. When was the last time you saw that on a TV broadcast? Nope. It's all prop bets and stuff. So Sonia's back. Yay, let's go bring Sonia back in. So we're going to talk a lot of college football tonight. Dana, God love her, is on vacation. Enjoy your trip, Dana. She is just not college football girl. It's me and Lisa
she's not.
Sonia. And it's me and Sonia a lot of Big 10, which became Big 14, and apparently is going to be Big 18 next year. I don't know if they're going to change the name or if they're going to still call it the Big 10 with 18 teams. The Pac-12 has completely fallen apart. 10 teams already left. The 2 that are left are suing the league to not make any decisions because they were still making decisions on they were $400 million coming into that conference from the opponents, the way they pay to play in these games, with what could be happening in the bowl games, with TV revenues and all this. And there were teams making decisions on how to separate and spend that money that have taken themselves out of the Pac-12. And so the courts basically said today, they put a restraining order on it. Any decisions you make must be unanimous from a representative for all 12 of the teams. And it's business as usual to finish the season. They've only got, their Pac-12 championship left. But next year, Oregon and Washington are moving to the Big 10. The other teams have already gone. So next year is going to be very different when it comes to how the regular season matters, what the conference championships look like, and then they're doing the 12-team playoff, right, for the actual championship, overall NCAA championship. So this year, we are still stuck with the current BCS format. The current college football rankings came out today. Nothing really surprising for me. I think if you haven't seen them, the top 4 are pretty much a no-brainer. They're the 4 12-0 big schools. So Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and Florida State. And then the next 4 kind of on the bubble teams who still have a chance are Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama. They're all 11-1. And of those 8 teams, 7 of them have games this weekend. They have conference championships. My Buckeyes are the only ones who don't have a game this week. So all they can do is sit back and hope a whole bunch of people lose to see if they can move up. And arguments will be made, depending on who loses, that they had a more quality wins or more quality losses or all of that stuff. To be perfectly honest, I am more than happy for my Buckeyes to sit out because whoever ends up in is going to have to face Georgia. And I just believe Georgia is so far and above away from everybody else that they should just give them a trophy and we should be playing for second place. I mean, it's just, right? It's insane. So, Lisa, talk to me about Florida State. When they lost to Jordan Travis, their quarterback, everyone wrote him off. And I said, listen, we had a Buckeyes team a few years ago who lost their starting quarterback. Cordell came in. He ended up winning them the Michigan game. He won them, playoff games. We went on to a national championship with a quarterback who hadn't played all year. It could happen with Florida State. They could go all the way, but I think they have to win this week to hold on to it. If they lose, who are they playing? Louisville?
Yeah, and Louisville is coming off a tough loss to Kentucky.
Yeah. So
it's gonna be a game. And also they're second. He's I think he believes he's a junior. He's not like a freshman. But the loss of Jordan, I mean, it was no difference for me when Washington vaulted them, because this isn't a sexy game. You want that sexy quarterback, right? You want the ratings. You want the big thing. But when Jordan Travis went down, the first thing everybody said is Washington's going to vault Florida State just because of that whole issue. But then you have the issue, Florida, rivalry weekend, all these games, everybody takes the records out the door. It just doesn't matter what the records are, guys. It just doesn't, right? I mean, Florida lost their quarterback. Florida State lost their quarterback. So we're dealing with so many backup quarterbacks right now in college football. But how can you discard Florida State? How can you? They've gone undefeated all season. Now they're going to face Louisville without their starting quarterback. If they get over Louisville, you can't disregard. You're going to have to put them in the Florida. You're going to have to put them in the playoff challenge. You have to.
Yeah,
right?
Louisville's ranked 15th, and I think for all four of these teams, if they win, they're in. It's that easy. I could make the argument that if Michigan somehow loses the Big Ten championship, Ohio State has an argument to get back in, because Ohio State would have lost to a ranked team and Michigan would lose. Who are you playing, Sonia?
Iowa.
Oh, good God.
They're 18th. So while they're ranked, they're 18th. If Michigan loses to Iowa, Buckeye fans going to make the argument of, hey, 2 lost to 18. When we were 2, we lost to 3. And they're going to try to get
the Hawkeyes are 16.
Oh, 16 now? Okay.
16.
So, I think really the only chance of movement in that top 4, and Pete asked the question, if Oregon, Georgia, and Michigan win, but Florida State loses, who's number 4? I think if Florida State loses, they do drop out of that top 4, because I think the voters will lose faith in that entire team since they lost their quarterback. The fact that
do you take into play Alabama at that time? But do you take into play Alabama? If Alabama knocks off Georgia, I think that somersaults a lot.
It messes up a lot of things. But if Georgia wins, Alabama's now got 2 losses. If Oregon wins, they've only got 1 loss. So now you're looking at which 1-loss team can move up. Texas has got a game. Let's see, who is Texas playing?
They play.
So Texas has a game. If they win, then they can make an argument. But I think, whether I like it or not, I think as far as this goes, if Oregon, Georgia, and Michigan all win, if Oregon wins, I think they take that 4th spot. Right? Because they're still just going to have 1 loss.
I would put, if Oregon wins, Florida State loses, then you just flop them. You flop them. 4 and 5. I think if Michigan loses, you're going to see Oregon, Florida State if they win out. So, like I said, the biggest thing to me is Alabama and Georgia. That SEC. I think that SEC championship is, and we are what, one play away from an Alabama team having 2 losses. If we go look back at the Iron Bowl. So that was just incredible. So
I completely agreed. But if they beat Georgia, I think
they beat Georgia. Georgia to me, that game somersaults all this. Yeah. This is gonna, and then it's gonna be a Hail Mary for them to try to figure out who's going in, who's not, who played more of the ranked teams, it's gonna be whew. And then you clearly have Michigan number 1.
Oklahoma State on Saturday. Is Oklahoma State ranked?
Yes, 18th.
What?
18th.
Yeah, Texas has Oklahoma State. So 18th. Everyone's playing ranked teams, right? I mean, Washington's got Oregon. They're both ranked. Michigan has Iowa. They're both ranked. Florida State's got Louisville.
That Washington-Oregon game's huge.
It is.
I mean, they've got so many NFL players and so many NFL talents on both those sides of that ball. On Oregon, Bo Nix is going to be the highlight of that game. So he's going to play his butt off because he's going to want to get looked at.
So if that happens, if Oregon beats Washington, do they replace Washington in the top 4?
Absolutely. To me,
Michigan
absolutely.
beat Ohio State and knocked us out of the top 4. Is that the same?
Absolutely.
Same thing for Washington, Oregon. Win and you're in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
to me,
I think
definitely.
so.
I missed her.
The entire discussion shows why polls are ridiculous. Win your conference, you qualify for the playoffs. If you don't win, you're out. Simple. I agree.
Okay, so Ohio State would be out, but Ohio State would be out every year, John. I mean, I think you've got to, because look at Ohio State. Let's talk about Ohio State for a minute, who doesn't have the conference champion, but yet has managed. They have to play their butts off because they almost have to go undefeated.
Yeah.
To even be considered. And then you sit home and Ohio State plays. And then you've got the onside of saying, well, that's not fair. You sit home, you don't have a conference game, and bam, you just get put in because you don't. So how do we get Ohio State to have a conference game? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, it's one of the flaws with this system. It's why I like, the 12-team playoff that we're going to see next year, because if that one loss comes at the wrong time, like it did for Ohio State, if our one loss had been week 3, we'd be looking at a different situation, but we lost to Michigan. So there's no conference, championship for us. It's, I agree with, who was it? I'm going to keep putting John's comments up here. The voters want FSU to lose.
Yes.
I don't disagree.
They do, because he's right. No, he's absolutely right, because they want that sexy match off. When Jordan went down, it changed a whole flux of a lot of things for Florida State. And they talked about it today with Florida State. They're just not a sexy team. They just don't have that star quality type quarterback you had in Jordan Travis. Their defense is outstanding. I mean, that defense kept them all in the game at Florida, because Florida was beating them up offensively. Defensively, Florida's beating them up. But teams like that are in the top 5 play like that. They play. This is, once again, this is a rival. This is an in-state rivalry game. I don't care what the records are. For Florida State to come back and do what Florida State did, that's what makes a champion. That's what makes a team win right there. So I think Florida State, but I think you're absolutely right. I think we go for the Bo Nixes. We go for the Washington. We want the sexy games. You want Nick Saban. Do you not want Nick Saban in the playoffs? Everybody wants Nick Saban in the playoffs because of Alabama. You can't.
I don't.
Nick
but
Saban,
that's just me.
He is.
Alabama
that's
is my college football version of the Patriots.
Exactly.
Either you love them or you hate them.
Exactly.
There ain't no middle ground with Alabama.
Nope.
For me, I hope Florida State wins against Louisville so that they get in, because I love a team. All season long, they've been saying, this whole team is just Jordan, and without Jordan, they're nothing. And you know what? Maybe they are something without him. Maybe they are a more complete team than you gave them credit for. And that's what's going to prove it if they can get by Louisville. Sonia,
definitely. So,
if Washington beats Oregon, or if FSU loses, we think Oregon's in. Any other scenarios you think? Do you think there's any chance Michigan loses to Iowa?
I don't think Michigan loses to Iowa. There's always that, but I highly don't think that they will. But I do believe that whoever wins between Washington and Oregon is in. And, you talk about Ohio State and Michigan and that whole shebang, but I think, isn't it the Big Ten doing away with like Big Ten East and Big Ten West starting soon?
Yeah.
And then
so next year, when they do have 18 teams, there will no longer be 2 conferences. I'm trying to figure out how they are still going to pick a conference champion, but it's almost like a mini playoff thing. It's going to be a whole different world next year.
Yep. I was about to say, I thought it was like the top 2 teams in the Big Ten or the Big whatever are going to play for the championship. So again, a mini playoff. Yeah.
It'll be interesting. One of the other things that for me, I think came out of this past weekend was I got a little more clarity in my mind on what's going on with the Heisman candidates. I don't know why they don't just call it the best quarterback in college football, because that's what it has turned out to be. I thought this year we might have a chance with Ohio State's pride and joy, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver.
I'd give it to him.
having a shot at it, but let me tell you, he needed a better game against Michigan. He don't get a championship game, and they vote before the bowl games. And I don't.
Well, they didn't throw him the ball. Did you see my tweet during the game? Throw it to him.
And they weren't double teaming him. I'm like, he didn't even.
No, throw it to him.
Why are you not
tweeted it? Exactly. I tweeted that. Throw it to him. I'm throwing to him every down until I'm ahead. I'm sorry. I'm throwing that ball to him every down until I'm ahead.
Yeah, there were lots of complaints about Ryan Day's play calling. We could talk about a whole lot of coaches and their play calling, and some of them don't have jobs anymore. But I feel like he needed a little something to leave with the voters, win or lose that game, to get him up there. So I think we're down to quarterbacks as always. But what's interesting is they're all playing again this week. You've got Michael Penix Jr. from Washington, who got very emotional at that win this weekend against Washington State. Bo Nix from Oregon, Jaden Daniels from LSU, J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. Jordan Travis is still in the conversation, even though he's out. And then Carson Beck from Georgia. I think it's going to be down to the 4 that are still playing, right?
And it's going to be the winner is going to be who wins.
Nix,
the winner is going to be who wins.
And Beck. Those 4. They vote before we have a champion, but those 4 all play this week. Whichever of those 4 teams win, you got Washington facing Oregon, is going to take us down to 3, because I'm assuming Georgia's going to win, and I'm assuming Michigan's going to win. So whichever 3 quarterbacks win this week will be who the voters pick.
See, I disagree. I think it's going to be Oregon or Michigan. That's, to me, I mean, Oregon or Washington's quarterback. Those two are the leading odds favorites right now for the Heisman. If Oregon wins, it's going to be Bo Nix. If Washington wins, it's going to be Pettit.
And I don't disagree. I think Camden Beck's numbers at Georgia are really good, but that entire team is really good.
Yeah.
And I would argue that Michigan is winning despite J.J. McCarthy. He ain't nothing special, but y'all have defense and y'all can have an offensive line and can run the ball. I'm just saying his numbers do not impress me.
I agree. I think he's fantastic, but I don't think he is at the level of a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix Jr. Please don't come at me, people. But
I don't think they can. You're absolutely right. They come at you, they're going to come at me because
put me in there too. Yeah.
I mean, I know he's great, but I don't think he is that guy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm the NFL draft and I'm picking number 1, and am I the Carolina Panthers? Am I taking Michael Penix? Am I taking Bo Nix? Am I taking J.J. McCarthy? I'm sorry, I'm not taking J.J. McCarthy. He's not. He's very good, but he's not somebody that I think you can build an entire team around. I could argue with either Nix or Penix that you could build an entire team around one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll agree wholeheartedly.
I think so too.
So I'm going to send my letter to the committee tomorrow and tell them to just stop calling it the Heisman Trophy for the best player in college football and just call it the trophy for the best quarterback in college football, because it is what it is. That's what
I'm in.
It's the same, right? It's the same with the MVP in the NFL. Which quarterback is best? Not which player has the most, because we had this conversation about C.J. Stroud a couple weeks ago about how valuable he is to that Texans team, not just because he's a quarterback, but because of everything else he does. And it'll be Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts or somebody like that who put up insane numbers. But Jordan Travis has proven it in Florida, and we'll see how valuable he is if they can beat Louisville this week. If they can't win without him, then he's the MVP in college. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So everyone defines it differently, but I think that's where we're at with the Heisman. I think this weekend we'll get to see the eventual Heisman winner playing in a conference championship game.
I'll agree.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else going on in college that you ladies thought we should talk about tonight?
I just thought there were some outstanding games. Rivalry weekend has to be one of the best college football weekends in the history. I love rivalry weekend. I mean, especially the way it goes down, especially with the records, the way how, that Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, the individual. Oh my goodness. That's just, I mean, you just lay on the couch all weekend and just watch college football. And we have outstanding games.
It's good football. Like that.
It's good football.
I expected it was going to be really one-sided, one way or the other. I didn't know. I'm like, somebody's going to have 50 and somebody's going to have 10. And it was actually all the way to the end. I came up short, but it was still a good game. And a lot of these
I
were
thought they
that
were great games.
Washington State game.
Jeez.
We talk about this with the NFL. We talk about this with like Buckeyes in Michigan earlier in the year, how for some of these lower tier teams, this is their Super Bowl. They get geared up and ready for this. And these rivalry games, I'm excited that in college, the rivalry games still matter because I don't know culturally if they're as important in the pros as they used to be. Like we used to be, Brown Steelers used to be a big thing. Now it's really not. It's everybody Ravens, I guess. Sonia, do you feel like your AFC North games are still as like the rivalries are still there like they used to be? I think we're holding on to them in college. I don't know that we are with the pros.
I'll agree. There's always going to be some Michigan, Chicago, or, like Detroit, Chicago type thing, but I don't think it's as ravenous as a good word as Michigan, Ohio State. I mean, that is truly like a rivalry. That is the game. I mean, it's called the game, right? So no other football game is called the game. So yeah, pros or college. So yeah, it's there. It's in college and I love it. And I'm glad to be a part of it with you, Kate. Like regardless of records or anything, like it's always just been fun to go back and forth. Even, in the past, it's just been fun. And I'm so glad to be a part of that with you.
We play around during hate week and I've calmed down my snack talk a little bit this year. I used to post stuff every single day of hate week. But I saved it for just that day this year. And it is fun. So, I tell people we're friends 364 days a year. There's that one day that we're friends today, and then we're back to how we used to be. The only thing about our rivalry that I've never liked is that we don't have a trophy. We don't have an axe. We don't have a little brown jug. You don't have a cool thing. We have gold pants. What is with the gold pants? And then people sell their gold pants and then they get suspended and it's all like, I wanted some cool trophy that, we could carry around. And I see these other, Minnesota and Wisconsin and some of these other Big Ten schools. They're very cool trophies that they're playing for. And we got nothing.
We need a trophy.
We need a trophy. I don't know. I don't know if it'll be the same in the future. But I know it is still as rabid as always because Saturday afternoon, people wanted Ryan Day fired. He is 40-0 against everyone in the Big Ten. He is 1-3 against Michigan. But aside from Michigan, he is 40-0. And people are like, we don't care. He can't beat Michigan. He needs to go.
Right.
And that was John Cooper back in the day. I know for you guys, Sonia, it was Lloyd Carr. If you can't beat Carr, you need to go.
Good old Lloyd.
Matter how many perfect season, and that's the only game you lose every year. You need to go. And I'm telling people, y'all need to chill.
Right.
With us, it's a big deal because that game in recent years, the teams have been a lot better. There hasn't been as much, they're not like a 11-0 facing a 2-9 or something. They're both undefeated coming into that game. And that game really does determine the Big Ten championship. Who gets to go on and continue, win and you're in, and lose and you're out. And so there's a lot of weight on that game. And in previous years, when one or the other of the teams, it wasn't balanced. They weren't as good. It was really just about pride in winning the game. Now it comes down to that game. I don't know with the new format next year if that game will still weigh as much as it does. This may be the last year that game means as much as it means.
Yeah, that's what I saw a lot of in Michigan Twitter is that, this is the last year that it means this much to have so much riding on it. And so, yeah, it's really going to be interesting next year to see what happens and how we go into it, how it gets done.
The trophy should be a Wolverine sitting on a Buckeye. And John, I will answer this one for you. The only issue with the game is playing it at noon. Why? That game should be in primetime every year.
I agree.
Sonia, correct me if I'm wrong. They played in the evening once, and the fans were so drunk and rowdy and out of control because they had been tailgating all day that they moved it back to noon so that they have less time to drink before the game.
Exactly.
John, you don't want to see either stadium
That's
full
sad.
of because they start kegs and eggs at 6 a.m. And if kickoff isn't It's not even nice at a Browns game when kickoff's at 4. 1 o'clock is like, don't get me started on the late games. And this would be the same way. We drink a lot here in the Midwest. We like to think we can hold our liquor, and really it's beer. And it's a lot of beer. And it's a lot of beer. And a lot of using the restroom in places that aren't designated to be restrooms.
Yeah.
It was at an Ohio State Michigan game that I learned that you could dump a bag of kitty litter into a parking spot, and gentlemen, and I use that term loosely, would pee in it, which I guess saved my shoes from walking through it if it was just running around the parking lot. But yes, we just talked about kitty litter. It's not safe for anyone for Ohio State Michigan to play at night. It's just not.
It isn't. I mean, it would be a lot of fun, but you can't do that. Oh my.
Yes, Ohio State and Michigan. Have you seen our sports teams? We don't just have the Buckeyes and the Wolverines. We have the Lions and the Browns. There's a whole lot of drinking going on to drown our football sorrows. And I think, Sonia, I don't know if you feel this way. I said right before you got joined us that I feel like Browns fans, even those who didn't go to Ohio State, are Buckeye fans because we need that emotional excitement of the Buckeyes winning on Saturday to help sustain us through really bad Browns football on Sunday. And while it's gotten better lately, we still need that. And I kind of feel like, again, this year Detroit's having a good year, but there have been past years where y'all needed the Wolverines to win to get through Sunday.
Well, I'll say that, but I'll also say that Lions fans are divided because we've got Michigan fans and we've got Sparty fans. So there are times.
You have Sparty fans.
Yeah.
Sparty had a rough year this year.
Sparty
had a rough year this year.
Ooh, Sparty had a real bad year this year.
They got a trophy?
They ain't get a trophy.
Vikings fans say, hold my keg.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I mean, it'll be interesting. In NFL news, the Carolina Panthers relieved their head coach Frank Reich of his duties this week. It'll be interesting. I was surprised. Sonia, were you surprised?
I was very surprised, and I feel awful for Bryce Young. I feel awful for him because, he now has lost his quarterback's coach. He's lost his head. My God, this poor kid. He's going to need a couple years to really get going.
Yeah, when Carolina took him and the Texans took CJ, and this is not me being a Buckeye honk, I think we all agreed that the Texans were a better overall team in a better situation for a rookie quarterback than what was going on in Carolina. The Texans made a bunch of moves in the offseason. They made moves in the draft to move up and get, I'm going to mess up his name again, Lisa. Will Anderson? Yep. Will Arnett? Will. Defender dude. You know
Will.
They made moves to make the whole team better. They didn't just take CJ and throw him into the pool and say, good luck, kid. And that's what Carolina did with Bryce Young. And I thought, we're just going to get through this year. It's going to be bad. They're 1-9. It's going to be rough, but they've got that top pick in the draft next year. And they're going to shore up that team and figure out what he needs. And apparently not. Apparently the owner expected better than what he's gotten and got rid of the quarterback's coach and the head coach. And we'll see what happens with them next. I feel bad for them because they have not been right really since Cam Newton left.
2018. He's fired 3 coaches since he's took over the team in 2018. And him firing Frank Reich and sitting there and going in front of the press and saying that they still believe in Bryce Young is bullshit because they chose wrong. And that's why the guy got fired. So you're not going to tell me that CJ isn't the better quarterback. He is the better quarterback. It's just hands down right now. The way the kid shows himself on the field, he would have showed himself on the Panthers field just as well. And so, instead of just saying it, you chose wrong. End of the story. Oh, let's fire the coach. And we still, it was unanimous. It might have been unanimous, but I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm gonna tell you right now, they chose wrong.
Alabama quarterbacks or these top tier, number 1 pick quarterbacks, they end up going to teams that are not good. Right? And some of these guys, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Tua, have backgrounds of they never lost a high school game. They lost maybe one, 2 games their entire college career. You have to work on figuring out how they deal with adversity when you're interviewing them and scouting them and talking to them at the combine, because Joe Burrow has been very lucky, and Tua, Trevor's had his challenges. Jalen Hurts has been lucky. Their teams were ready for a quarterback. They were picking early, but they had already done some things to get that team ready. Bryce Young doesn't have any experience with adversity, and you want him to be a leader in the locker room and on the field of a 1-9 team full of pros who don't. How is he supposed to know how to do that?
And how is he supposed to know it now? Because
Right.
you sit there and you preach, patience. Okay, we're starting off with a young quarterback. You've already pulled the plug on that. You fired Frank Wright because of why? Because he was taking his time with the kid. They're trying to bring the kid along. He's a rookie, for crying out loud. So you're going to automatically just rip the rug out from the kid.
Well, and how do you judge how good he is or how good he isn't when he's got around him?
Right.
When his offensive line is a hot mess, when they've got no running game, I don't even know that I can accurately judge whether or not he's a good quarterback, because it's all of that. When their defense is terrible, so they're giving up a ton of points. So you're always playing from behind. Your field position is, it's just a terrible situation. I do think.
But I still think you can see it. I still think you should be able to see some kind of spark from the kid. I still think you should have been able, just like with Steve, you would have seen spark. You would have seen something that he's missing. And to sit there and just say, we took him, we still believe in him, but yet I fired everybody and the coach, and it's just, it makes no sense. And he makes no sense as an owner. I mean, look at the time wise. I mean, you have to be patient. You can't just throw team together and expect everything. And this guy has no patience. It's like, boom, 3 coaches since 2018.
Yeah.
And now he's talking to Jeff Fisher.
He's trying to beat my record. Yeah, that's a little crazy.
Jeff Fisher has interest. Well, of course, Jeff Fisher has interest.
Jeff Fisher's bored. He's sitting at home. We don't have any good mustaches in the NFL, so you can bring Jeff Fisher back. He won't have the best hair in the NFL anymore. He had that title for a while. I think the last thing I want to cover on this, which is sort of on this topic, if we're talking about quarterbacks and stuff, is Justin Fields. I loved him in college because he was a Buckeye, but I had concerns about how he would do in the NFL. It's a different thing. And he has struggled. And then he had that injury this year. But the last couple of weeks since he has come back, I feel like he gets it now. Like there's something different and it's starting to click. And, the turnovers last night were insane. But that aside, Sonia, you probably see more Bears football week to week than I do. Does it look like Justin's any different with Justin? Does it look like maybe he's getting it? Or do you think the Bears are going to walk away from him and go get a quarterback next year in the draft?
Honestly, I thought that at the beginning of the season, but I'm seeing what you're seeing. I think he has put it together, or is starting to put it together and really kind of say, this is my team. I mean, I feel like he had doubts while he was injured, and said, because everybody's calling for the backup quarterback, and he's like, nah, I'm still your guy. And he came out and he has proven that he is still their guy. And I think he's starting to improve just a little bit. And I think that's going to be enough to kind of help get him over that hump, hopefully. And if they're able to draft decently this year in the draft and get him some real true weapons and a run game and, people to throw to, I think he's going to be all right.
Yeah, I think for me, having him on Monday Night Football, the coverage for me on a Thursday night or Monday night, even the Sunday night game, I feel like the cameramen do a better job of getting you on the sidelines, getting you a look. I got a lot of looks at his face yesterday. And I don't know if Sunday, because there's so much going on, if it's just the different crews or what it is. But yesterday, I felt like they gave us a lot of looks at him on the sideline. There was that one play where they almost intercepted, the Bears defense almost intercepted, and you could see him on the sideline jumping up. Like he's paying attention to what's going on. And I know we've talked before about Bryce Young and CJ, when you get the camera on him, that Young just still looks deer in the headlights and CJ looks calmer. And Justin Fields used to look like that. And when I saw his face last night, as rough of a game as that was, his eyes were focused. He looked like he knew what he was doing and he was in control of things. And it was a confidence that I haven't seen a lot of from him before. So maybe he has turned that corner.
I'm hoping so. I mean, as much as I love to see the Bears not win, but I think for him and his sake, and, I do feel bad for young quarterbacks who are always thrown into a situation where it's like win or go home. And, I like to see them kind of develop and come along. And so I hope that for him, but, I hope the Lions still beat them. That's all.
Yeah, I know, but your division is like mine. The football is better when all the teams are a little bit better.
Exactly.
And we've had some games this year. Lord, Lisa, we have covered some games. I almost fell asleep during. They were painful to watch,
I was wondering who had it last night. I was wondering who had the game last night because I'm like, oh, thank God I took the Sunday night game because
poor Dana, she's on her way to the beach Jamaica. And drinks with umbrellas, so she paid for that trip with having to do Monday Night Football for us. Oh, and we have managed to talk college football almost exclusively for 45 minutes. I'm proud of us. We're going to talk a lot more. We're going to teach Dana more about college football because when it comes time for the draft, it's important to know who's coming up and who you're looking at and who those players are that can help your team. And I think the three of us, with as much as we watch, I think that's why last year on our Pick'em show for the draft, I think we hit 8 of the first 10 picks.
Yep.
I think we hit because we watch and we learn. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Donkey's Cheesesteak. Thank you, Sonia, for being safe and joining us tonight. Thank you, Lisa, for not having chicken and cow and goat emergencies at your farm.
I do not. Everything's good, but everybody's chilled. Everybody's cold. It's cold here right now. I'm going down to the 30s tonight. Woo.
Thank you to everyone who joined us in the chat. We appreciate you so much. If you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter, come over to YouTube next week. You can get in the chat. You can put comments in, and then I won't have to just keep putting up everything John says as we're going through the show. We'll have to do the Art Turf podcast with John as our special guest.
Yeah, with John. John's back. I missed
He
John.
did have some good points this week. He did have some good points this week. Can't argue with that.
His quarterback played like crap, but he's back.
He is back.
And we will be back next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. Have a good week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Sonia. Bye, Sonia. Sonia in the car.